Austin Roper asks, what has been your most favorite race you have won in the Nationwide Series?
Whew, that's difficult, you know. I look back at that and, you know, it's hard to pick one because the first race I won meant so much to me, and to have my family there, it was really special. But, you know, been fortunate enough the last 2 years to win at Michigan, which is my home track. And then I got my whole family there. I mean, not just like mom and dad, like sister, brother, cousin, long-lost relatives, you know, and their friend. So those races meant a lot to me. So it's really hard to weigh one against the other. So I'll just pick all of them.
It's a good way to go, right?
Yeah.
The next one is usually the best one, right?
Yes, those are always the good ones.
Right.
Yeah, you know, when you win a race as a race car driver, and it's a great week, you know, that week after, and you know, you feel like you're on top of the world. And then that next week comes, and you know, if you don't win that week, then all you can think to yourself is, am I ever going to win again? You know, and so then you begin to appreciate that next win more than anything else.
Speaking of that, you know, it's kind of customary when a driver wins, kind of does a little something for the crew guys. What's the protocol on that? How does that work out? Is there, you know, are you pizza guy, or do you have watches for everybody? What do you do?
Well, Kurt does pizzas at Penske Racing, so when Kurt wins, he buys everybody a pizza. I never really have gotten into the pizza thing. I did it once, and it was kind of, eh.
Yeah. Gotta have your own
I
thing.
mean, I don't know. I kind of thought of it like a school lunch. You know, you get school lunch when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Like pizza was like $1, $1.50.
Yeah.
I was like, it kind of feels a little cheap, you know?
Yeah.
So I got away from the pizza thing.
You know, you just said Kurt's cheap.
Yeah, I did, yeah. In a roundabout way, Kurt would probably acknowledge and appreciate that I said that.
Yeah.
And I meant it in the nicest way possible.
Of course.
But, you know, I try to do something different every time.
Okay.
Dover, I won Dover a few years ago for Junior Motorsports.
Yeah.
And so I bought everybody mini trophies.
Nice.
Which was really cool. So just buy a replica, but it's like a mini version. You know, Dover has that trophy of the monster holding the car and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got one of those trophies for everyone. So I try to do something a little different every time. You know, I bought my crew chief a full-size trophy for Talladega and Nashville when I won those 2 nationwide races last year. And that was just a, you know, kind of a token appreciation. And so I don't always do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I don't really have like a routine. And a lot of things I do, I try not to have a routine because it just gets boring.
Yeah. You know, they say, by the way, internet chat hosts have big impacts on racing. So
Really?
just saying.
On like winning, or
Well,
what part
just
of
saying.
it?
So when you win,
So did you interview Carl Edwards and Ricky Stenhouse
not
this
yet.
week?
Not yet.
Okay.
But
All right. I was just
happen.
looking for a good luck
could
on him. You know,
happen.
Dave Despain, you know, he
Dave's, yeah.
he interviews you, you win.
Yeah, I
you
know. I know.
I'm just saying you need to work on your legacy.
You're probably right. Probably right. All right, Jeannie's got another one here. Is there a veteran driver you lean on the most for advice? Maybe your dad?
You know, that's a tough question. I think that's something that's probably always changing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think obviously having a relationship with Kurt as a teammate, you know, and kind of trusting him and him trusting me, you know, the more that we work together, I probably lean on Kurt right now more than anyone else. But, you know, obviously it hasn't always been the case. You know, when I was growing up, I probably leaned more on, you know, obviously my dad and drivers that I was around at the time, which would have been like a Dennis Setzer or a Terry Cook, you know, guys of that nature. And then as you just transcend your way up through the sport, you know, those things kind of change. So, you know, I probably rely more so on Kurt now, but it's always changing.
That's interesting because Shannon asks here, do you and Kurt have a good relationship? What's that like?
Oh, I think we have a great relationship. In fact, he was last person I saw before I came here. You know, we talked about different things we're working on. So I think that we're doing very well.
Okay. Dane Arahu, Dane, I hope I said that right, pal, asks, you've had a lot of nationwide success. How do you expect to transition to that same level of success in the Cup Series? How long does that take to find a groove to get to that?
That is an excellent question, Dana, and one that I've spent a lot of time thinking about personally. And I think, you know, if you objectively look at it, you have to look at a couple different things. You have to look at the turnover rate in the sport. That's the first piece you have to look at. And we compare, like, let's take Denny Hamlin came in the sport in 2006. Great, came in on fire. And I think one of the key things to look at is that, you know, he came in with Gibbs, great team, great company, just like Penske. But there was a lot of turnover at that time, Sven. You know, we saw guys like Rusty Wallace, we saw guys like Terry Labonte and so forth, you know, Ricky Rudd, all leaving the sport right in that time span. And so it created somewhat of a void. And a perfect opportunity to strike for a talented driver like a guy like a Denny or a Kyle that came in. So I think if you look at that, Ralph, and say that we're not seeing that now. You know, we haven't seen any driver turnover really for the last 3 or 4 years. So that means it's going to take longer. And you also look at the advent of the testing ban and so forth.
Yep.
So it just adds years to how long it's going to take for a new driver to come in the sport and be competitive. So I think the biggest thing for me is just trying to stay patient. You look at the best driver crew chief pairing in the sport. You know, I think pretty much everyone would agree it's Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson.
Yeah.
As good as they are, it took them 4 years to win a championship. And so, you know, I think you have to, I hate to use the word lower your expectations.
But be reasonable?
But you have to be reasonable. And for me, the biggest thing is to show improvement throughout the next few years and to show that we can win races over the next, 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
And then from there, show that we can win races consistently. And then you can contend for a championship. But, realistically, that's going to take a 4 to 5 year commitment to really do.
Yeah, definitely. You're right about that. Don't forget, if you have a question for our nationwide live chat here with Brad Keselowski, just put it in on NASCAR.com and we'll get it right here. Kevin Ben asks, do you like the two-car draft racing at Daytona and Talladega?
Well, I love it when I'm leading.
Yeah.
I hate it when I got wrecked. So, it's a double-edged sword. It's kind of, I like seeing the sport evolve. And the two-car draft is the next evolution of NASCAR racing on, big speedways.
Okay, now you used the word evolution for that. You think that's heading in a positive direction then?
Well, not every evolution is positive, and that's
True.
That's the key thing. And, I think the jury's still out in a lot of people's minds about the two-car draft. I think we saw the best race we've ever seen at Talladega, in my opinion, this past spring. Best finish, at least, maybe not best race. Mm-hmm. And so it creates a couple different elements. And probably my only real complaint with the two-car draft, it's not that you don't have control. It's not that you can't see, or it's dangerous or any of that stuff. My real complaint is that it's too easy. And what that means is essentially you can ride in the back all day and with 2 laps to go decide that you want to race and still make it to the front. So it devalues the first part of the race. So, I almost feel like we need to restructure the races accordingly to kind of create value to them, because nobody wants to see the races where the first 180 laps are just riding around. And I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy that rides around like that. So it's difficult, but I think if you look at the actual ending, they're phenomenal endings.
Yeah, the ending was great. So how would you change the middle then?
Well, I think that really, it's a larger question for the sport in general. But I think in general we have to find a way to put more value into the first half of the race, which means whether that's dividing the points up to where you get half of your points based on where you finish at the halfway point of the race, or even if we don't even put a finish out, if it's just halfway point, you're running third, you get third place points, or some kind of prorated system like that. I think that would really help the sport. We're looking at the lucky dogs and the wave rounds and so forth that mean that if you can just stay on track for the majority of the race, you'll be there at the end. And so that kind of devalues the first part of the race. So I wish we could find some way to add value to it.
Okay. Here's a Dale Senior fan who asks, what's your favorite racing memory that you have with your dad?
Ooh. There's a few of them that really stick out, being in Victor Lane with him as a kid. I don't miss watching him race. I don't, because that was always so hard as a kid to watch. I don't know, I was always gotten really nervous for some reason. And it's I get a lot less nervous driving the car than I do watching either my brother or my father when he raced. So, so I don't miss those parts. Those weren't real memorable. But the actual winning part, being in Victor Lane with your family, those were special moments.
And I'm sure there was a lot of them with your dad, too. He had quite a career. You've gotten into guns.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit of an enthusiast now on the gun scene. So tell me a little bit about that. What got you started there?
Well, I had the Navy sponsorship with NASCAR, which was awesome, by the way, at the end of the 07 season and through the 08 season. I wish I still had them, to be honest, but I had a lot of fun representing the men and women of the military and meeting quite a few of them and hearing their stories and kind of traveling with them. We did some cool appearances on aircraft carriers and went out and signed autographs and did all the cool stuff. And I really I always had kind of an affinity for military stuff before, but I think I kind of cemented it in place, and have a lot of family members that are involved in the military in some form or fashion. So, I guess through that time span of that period, it kind of made me want to have some kind of, I don't know.
Weaponry?
Weaponry, yes, yes. And I just thought it was really, really cool. And so, I got my cousin who is a Navy SEAL who taught me some different things. And I obviously had to buy some weapons first. And
right.
That was really cool. And actually, my foundation, we had this guy, military kind of is a theme that I've really enjoyed being a part of. So we had this guy that we brought out for my foundation to the races in Talladega last fall. He's been through all the stuff in Afghanistan, Iraq, came back injured, with some brain, damage, and got to where he just can't work. He spends half of a day in a dark room in a closet, because of different mental injuries and so forth. So he's a really hard guy to get out and to really get his life going. So, through my foundation, the Checker Flag Foundation, we kind of got him out of the house and to the racetrack, and put him in a suite so he could watch the race and do it in an area where he was comfortable and so forth. And he had a blast, had a great time, and wanted to kind of do something back for the foundation. So in his spare time, he built a couple rifles and donated them to the foundation. Really? And he gave one just to me. He's like, man, I want you to have this one. And he donated another one to the foundation that we're actually going to auction off, and the proceeds of which will go for guys like himself and different programs that we have with my foundation to kind of entertain them and engage them. So
that's fantastic.
That certainly kind of spurred on my enthusiasm for rifles, and I went and shot that, and I had a blast. So I owe him
cool.
my respect and appreciation, along with a lot of the servicemen and women that make this possible. They all make sacrifices for us. And, at the end of the day, we're just race car drivers driving in circles, and they're the ones that make it possible.
Yeah, as we're approaching Memorial Day here, aren't we?